Alright, welcome back to Nick Lenz's Doctor Who Review, episode 122. We are here reviewing the opening story of season 14 of the show, The Masque of a Moon Dragon. This was 4 episodes released in the 1970s. This was released from the time period of, I know it's in the 70s, September 4th, December 25th of 1976. Which is also known for a few things. Number one is the second to last story of the cover that was released in the 1970s for Tom Baker. Number two, this is Sarah Jane Smith's penultimate story in the entire series. Well, basically her last penultimate story as a regular. Yes, Elizabeth Sutton leads the following story. Let's see. Number 3. I believe this is also the 3rd season of Tom Baker's run. Yes, this is the start of his 3rd season of his run. 3rd of 7. But I only have like 3 more stories if they go. Let's see. This story here is also noteworthy for debuting the wooden console room. Yes. Which, of course, it was around up until Robots of Death. Which was replaced because the new producer despised it and replaced it with the more classic console room. He thought basically didn't think it was really useful. And it's referred to as, when they first show it, it's like, oh, this was the different consoles, like, oh, it was like old console. No, yeah, basically the previous console room, yeah, that disappears. Because it was the last scene in Seas of Doom. It does not return until, like, after Robots of Death. That's when it pops up again. Now, we first start off the episode itself. Moses, the Doctor, and Sarah just walk around the TARDIS. And look, it's a boot cupboard. Which is a living room. Apparently there's many of them. And then Sarah just happens to come across this room just by sheer coincidence. And it's covered in wood. It's got like a shaving mirror. This poofy shirt. All this other stuff. And they just happen to come across this area. Which they look on this energy, and then they come against attack TARDIS, and then they end up in 15th century Italy. And there's also this weird like coup d'etat, or basically this whole thing of like, oh, we have this guy uses a horoscope to predict stuff. One of the things predict was actually the previous leader's death. And they also mentioned the thing about King of Naples. Now, I do know about the King of Naples. Not particularly who he was. You're thinking, wait, King of Naples. Naples is a city. Well, there is an explanation for that. During the Renaissance, Italy was not a unified country at that point in time. It was series of city-states. And this is during the Renaissance. Leonardo da Vinci is mentioned. It's one of like 2 stories I could think of. Da Vinci is mentioned, but does not physically appear. So then, of course, Doc knows about the energy being there, and of course, he tried to the castle. Of course, he and Sarah are separated, obviously, because that's what happens in all these stories. And then, of course, basically tries to explain to the local leader, who is a duke, who's actually the brother of the previous leader who died. And he just wants the throne. He wants to get rid of his nephew because he really wants that throne so badly. And you probably think, like, given how antagonistic the Duke is to the Doctor, is he the main villain of the story? No. It is basically the horoscope guy. Yeah, he's a true main villain because he worships this damn energy. Also, there's something interesting, though. At this point in the episode, that somehow Sarah Jane knows Italian. Despite she doesn't actually regularly speak it. They do kind of explain it's a Time Lord's gift. This is the first time it's ever been brought up the whole series. Yeah, 14 seasons in, and we finally bring this up, this little factoid. Yes, why in the world this was never brought up for this story, I have no idea. This has been vaguely mentioned over the years, like, as TARDIS technology, or at least the TARDIS, basically, is the reason why people speak English. Yeah, that's kind of how basically they explain it here with that one. Now, apparently Elizabeth Slade was actually scheduled to leave according to contract. Her last story is going to be Seeds of Doom. But she basically extended it to work on this very story because of the Renaissance. I'm sure she must have enjoyed the Renaissance. Of course, she would leave within the very next story of the season. but a lot of like running around. Eventually meets with the prince, the son of the previous leader. Turns out he's a pretty decent guy. And also during the course story, Duke dies. He dies like in the penultimate story. Well, a part of this one. Oh, I forgot to mention, this is a 4-part story. Yeah, the thing is, all the remaining Tom Baker stories I have left to watch and review all have 4 parts. No 6-parters. Like, the next time I have a 6-parter won't be until, like, I talk about a John Pertwee story. Yes, a John Pertwee story, which is going to be the second story for season 9 of the show. That has basically 6 episodes. I'll discuss this some other point. But, of course, by the end, this Helix energy is defeated. And of course, Doc does know in the story, Da Vinci cannot die because of another Dark Age if he dies. Well, probably because he's a popular historical figure, he does not want to cause the death of that particular person. Probably because he's a fan, per se. He does also know, I taught basically the bodyguard Cleopatra pointers, or one of our bodyguards to be a swordsmanship. I like little details like that Doctor just brings up, like Cleopatra, because I'm thinking, he probably has met her. That's not what he has. Overall, this was a really interesting story per se, but not one of my personal favorites. Probably the best things about this story, in my opinion, is the setting and the costume. I love the setting and the costumes. And I like some of the world building stuff of Doctor Who, and I like the TARDIS, the new TARDIS interior they debuted in the story, which I do have one more story left to basically discuss that one. It's a kind of a weird thing. You just pull down it's like a cupboard, you turn knobs, and they say this was the original console room. Given how the main console room looks, I don't. You could probably kind of buy that, but this probably was cheap. And plus, also another reason why they got rid of it, because apparently over the break between seasons, I think it was this TARDIS room had rotted. Yeah, it had rotted for some reason. But apparently, a couple of the pillars were saved for use for something else. But a lot of everything else in this console was pretty much destroyed. But yeah, not much else to say about the story. So that's pretty much it for the video. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe to notifications. Next time we have a comment corner, and then it's on to Kay's clothes next. Okay, next video. Bye.